Hey, I love Baldur's Gate. Like, I remember the old games, and I've been waiting for this one for a minute. It's now in early access, so at some point I will give it a try. Um, but it was a great game. It was very similar to Diablo back in the day, right? Now it's a little bit different, okay? But but it's from Larian Studios. I love them. They made the very acclaimed. Completely forgot the name of the game. But they made another game. Um, great, great fucking game. So let's see. Let's see what's the drama.
Stumbling upon an article, and I absolutely had to talk to you guys about it.
Okay.
The article is basically about how a bunch of developers feel that they shouldn't be held to the same standards as Baldur's Gate 3 is setting.
What?
A lot of people are seeing Baldur's Gate 3 for the first time. They're watching the videos, or some of them actually got to have some hands-on gameplay, and they're sitting there going, man, this is a huge step forward for RPGs and etc. But there's
okay. So this is where I feel I need to do a little bit of background before my boy here starts doing the same thing I'm doing right now. They have gone far and beyond what your average developer would do when it comes to voice acting, when it comes to content, hours of playtime, etc., etc. They did the same thing with the previous game that, again, the name still eludes me. But at some point, it'll hit me. And the point is that they have gone far and beyond what your average developer do. Divinity Original Sin, there we go. And they also did Divinity Original Sin 2. So, wait, did I
there's
just...
some people.
I just realized... fuck me, I just realized this is not really showing you guys. But I want to show you, so I'm going to go ahead and fix this here a quick second. Oh, why are you not showing? Why, oh, why? There we go. All right.
People that don't want to be held
do it.
to the same standard that Baldur's Gate 3 is setting right now. And for the smaller developers that hop in on this conversation, I think they are absolutely valid with what they're bringing up. However, things get really interesting when AAA developers also feel like they need to chime in as well. This article comes from Game World Observer. The article is titled,
I mean, this kind of stuff happened with Elden Ring. Remember that?
why
I actually do not play Elden Ring, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But I'll believe you. Why devs consider Baldur's Gate 3 anomaly? Not new standard for RPG genre. It's Rockstar level nonsense for scope. Oh shit. So like we're going ham. Okay. Damn.
devs consider Baldur's Gate 3 anomaly, not new standard for the RPG genre. It's Rockstar level nonsense for scope. The article reads, what sparked the debate for Baldur's Gate 3?
Okay.
This all started with a Twitter thread by Strange Scaffold head Xalavier Nelson Jr. I'm glad I said that right this time. The studio head is best known for Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator and the upcoming Max Payne shooter El Paso Elsewhere. He cited several things that separate Baldur's Gate 3 from most RPGs in the market, namely long development cycle that started back in 2017.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I thought the game already came out.
After Divinity Original Sin.
Yeah, I thought I played it whenever it came out, but it turns out that was actually just a beta.
Previous games, Divinity Original Sin 2 and Divinity Original Sin,
yeah, I was just
worth
an
of
idiot.
tech and institutional knowledge to draw from. Successful early access period lasting 3 years that provided Larian with community feedback, bug hunting, and cash flow. A huge team of over 400 developers across 7 studios.
My voice, Larian, I'm telling you.
License for one of the largest entertainment IPs out there in Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Yep.
Reading directly from Nelson's tweet, like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited for the lovely folks at Larian and what they've accomplished with Baldur's Gate 3, but I want to gently, preemptively push back against players taking that excitement and using it to apply criticism or raise standard to RPGs going forward.
Okay, it's 1 out of 10. Let's hear what he has to say.
This is not a new baseline for RPGs. This is an anomaly. Adding that, trying to reach the same bar without the same experiences or advantages could kill an entire group of studios. Adding on to that, Rebecca Harwick from Grimoire.
Let me read what he says. Let's read what he says. Let's find out for ourselves.
All right, go ahead and find out for us.
Okay. So he's made 3 videos responding to people that were not happy about what he said. Okay, so doesn't look good. Like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited about the folks of Larian. You can't separate a game from the process used to build it. So let's look at Larian is taking into development for the final version of the game. Okay, dev starting there. Okay, good. License and brand. This is a small incomplete list. Larian is coming into this game swinging with a gigantic weight of expectation to deal with. We're also doing it with an immense amount of wind, direct experience, resources, tooling at their backs. I think also keep in mind that, yes, they also researched the wind ahead of time. Having wind, having a tailwind, you might think that this is just some sort of like an accident. Oh, they cultivated this positive outcome, right? It's not like, that you just got lucky that the wind was at your back.
Exactly.
No, this was a cultivated outcome.
Like, I'm telling you, let me pause this for a second, because the reality is that studio is the reason why I'm praising them so much, and it's because they actually take the time to listen to the fucking player base and actually develop a game that the players fucking like. Oh my god, unheard of.
So let's see here, as a TLDR, in the era of mega games, Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the largest attempted, built by a specialized group of people using mature tech specifically built to make this specific game, reinforced by invaluable mass player feedback and market validation ahead of its launch. This is not a new baseline for RPGs. This is an anomaly.
Okay, wait. Let me see if it's gonna stop.
Trying to do the same thing in the same way without the same advantages could kill an entire group of studios. If they go as big or bigger with the next title, Larian themselves could die. That's the risk and reward with a mega game, of course. We're an industry dangling elephants over cliffs, pointing at ones that don't collapse under their own weight as indictments of the ones that do. Please celebrate the achievements created by Baldur's Gate 3. It looks like a massive amount of effort. It's going to pay off in a big way. One of the brightest voices in the medium. But if you shout that every RPG should be like this going forward, you have no excuse. You just missed the point. You've created expectations and conditions to ensure that your favorite creators may not be able to give you a thing that you want ever again. Well, I think that it's not really up to the... I can see what he's saying, and I think that there's like some truth in what he's saying, but I also don't think that the customer can be wrong in matters of taste. If people like Baldur's Gate 3 and this is the expectation that they have, then the studios that make these games either rise to that expectation or they lose in the competitive market.
Exactly.
Because that's just what happens. Like, if one studio is able to make games that is like way better than everybody else, and like, again, he's saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is an anomaly because of the like development time and everything like this. But, like, many games have been developed for like years.
Yeah, you know what? Let me stop in there again, because that's kind of the thing. Like, are you telling me that the excuse is because they developed Divinity Original Sin, like an old school turn-based RPG based on Baldur's Gate, based on D&D rule set and such? Unheard of. Like, this is nothing new. But the thing is that they made a good game. Like, they just used the basics, and with the basics, they molded in their own shape, and they made a good game. Now, it wasn't the fucking greatest game ever, but it was a good game. And then they refined it with Divinity Original Sin 2, making it an even better game, okay? So this is not an anomaly. This is not something that they got lucky. They literally took a mold of something and made it beautiful, okay? That's what they did. And with the money that generated... with the good criticism that they got, because they were actually pleasing the players, as to the extent of my knowledge, so they just became a well-loved developer team, and they made some good money. And now with that money, using the same a system that they already developed for 1 and 2, they're using it on Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously, it's gonna be slightly different, but in essence, it's gonna be the same turn-based engine, if you may. How is this unheard of? Am I taking crazy pills?
Years and years and years. Think about like Elder Scrolls, for example. And there have been games that were developed for 5-10 years. Duke Nukem Forever comes out, it's garbage. So I don't think that's
true.
necessarily
so
a guarantee that it's going to be good. But the truth is
you're going to have something good.
If you want to compete in a free market, you have to compete with people that are willing to invest that much into a game. And at the end of the day, a customer has $50, and they can either buy the mega game or the game that's not the mega game.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, in this based off of his language. So why would a customer ever make a decision to buy a game that even the developers of the game potentially are saying isn't as good? It's the same as streaming. Like, you can't expect people to watch your stream just because you don't have the time or resources to buy a better computer or buy a better mic or buy a better PC or buy a better camera. You can't expect people to make up for your lack in quality just because you think that they owe it to you or something like that, or you think that's what's fair. The truth is that the customer is the ultimate decider in what succeeds and doesn't succeed.
Exactly. The customer decides. So basically, you are arguing with the customer here. This is what we want. Why are you telling us, no, you should not want that? That's basically what this comes down to.
The market, whether that is a video game, whether that's a content creator, or whether that's like
guys,
a TV
42
show.
minutes video.
The customer is the ultimate decider. And if people want games that are like Baldur's Gate 3 and are willing to not buy games that aren't like Baldur's Gate 3, then you either make a game like that or pack your fucking bags.
Exactly.
Because that's just how it is.
Exactly.
I'll watch his video real quick.
This is the developers trying to determine what the customer should like. Sounds like
on
EA,
Twitter about how Baldur's Gate 3, as cool as it looks, as much as we should celebrate what Larian has achieved, is not a baseline or standard for what games can be moving forward. It's an anomaly, much like the...
And again, like, every customer decides what that baseline is.
Exactly.
The studio doesn't decide what that baseline is.
The studio has no say on this.
The studio makes the game.
They can only create a product and
then the customer decides if it meets their baseline.
Other mega games being made in this era of development.
Yeah.
And that caused a whole kerfuffle. So I'm going to address some of the comments and concerns with that discussion via video.
Sure.
The first major category of concern that I see around this is people saying, are you saying we should expect our games to not be good, meaningful, well-made, stable games at launch? And I'm not saying that at all.
I do think that, like, this idea, like, I have, like, there's like a little bit of, like, double talk going on here. Because, like, I expect always online live service games whenever they're released to be garbage.
Yeah.
I just expect them to be garbage. I expect them to be fucked up, messed up, etc. Do I think that's acceptable? Tend to be garbage. Well, I'll deal with it, right? But it's really fucking annoying.
Because it comes down to the same thing again. The developers try to limit what the customers should be enjoying, doing, buying, etc. By making a live game, in reality, is them basically taking the game hostage. You don't ever have the actual game. You only buy the license to be able to play the game that they have hostage with the limitations they want you to play in, you know? And that's why even, like, let's take, for example, Diablo 4 that just came out, right? Even though it's a great game and has, just like any other game, has its ups and downs, it still does not come close to Diablo 2. And it's not necessarily because Diablo 2 is this greater version of it, but it's simply because it has far more mechanics that actually please the player and actually make the game more enjoyable to play. You know, everything has its pits and falls, but that doesn't mean that the player should suffer them. You know, if there's Chinese trading, for example, that doesn't mean you should disable trading completely. Again, there's ups and downs to everything. You can only do so much, but the player should not be the one suffering, or the customer.
It is extremely fucking annoying. And the only reason that we put up with it is because nobody else can do it right. But if people started doing it right, and then the studios that couldn't do it right still weren't doing it right, they wouldn't be studios anymore.
Exactly, because we start losing money.
They're all fucking up, so it's okay.
Exactly. So
I am saying,
so the current bar is to
the
just
terrifying thing about investing into video games is that money, time, and specialized development staff do not guarantee quality. They don't. It can give a talented dev team space to fail and then succeed.
Why are you discrediting?
It can give you space to put more game inside of your game, but it does not guarantee quality or that the game will come out at all. Whether the game...
I mean, sure, of course that's true. Yeah,
it's a
that's
valid
the same with
point,
anything.
but still you're discrediting the
out,
ability for people to be able
the game reaches enough people.
to use
All
their
three of those
skills.
things, regardless of your time or budget level, are up in the air. And that means
I think that they are up in the air, but like I don't think it's as much up in the air as he's making it out to be.
It's making
I think that a
seem
lot of
to
times
be
games
like
get
it's just
pushed
a
out and
complete hit or
they're
miss,
not
fucking
finished. And
Gangnam
if you
Style
ask the
here.
developers, like, you got this developer drunk, and it's 2 a.m, and you ask them, was it ready for release? They would say no. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, is that the game gets pushed out on purpose, and it's not ready.
that the one thing that money, time, and development staff do guarantee is risk. Games are business and art. They're creativity and science. If we could do it perfectly 100% of the time, we would. But there's no blueprint or template. So, when $20 million gets lost on a game, that's obviously a big amount of money.
Yeah.
But when $200 million gets lost in a game, it can take an entire wave of studios with it. 7 studios.
You saw that happen with Forspoken, for example. They invested a ton of money into the game, and then it went straight into the garbage. And that's what happens.
I don't understand something. Why this man keeps making it seem like it's all 100% luck. That's his definition of this up in the air. Basically, that is luck. And we have already explained, of course, he doesn't know this, but as we know that the game has its history, its successes. Successes equals better, bigger games. I feel like I need to put that emoji of the guy going like, I swear to God, I don't.
Not including outsourcing partners, worked on Baldur's Gate 3 alone. If that goes down,
He got another.
Okay, we can skip this guy because really.
GTA 6 comes out, everybody's going to play it, right? Whenever the new Souls game comes out, everybody's going to play it, sure. But there's a lot of these other games that, like, the little nuances to them, and these are also, like, beyond S-tier examples. Like, I'm talking about, like, the B and A tier examples. Like, remember that one game? What the fuck was it? I don't even remember its name. I hope nobody else does, too. That one game that we watched, and it looked like absolute pixel soup, and they were on, like, some ship, and it looked like this, like, super over-designed Anthem-like game. It looked like fucking garbage. And you know they invested probably $100 million into that shit.
Which one?
And so, nobody remembers it. I probably would remember the name if I saw it. But yeah, nobody even remembers the name of the game. Exoprimal? Maybe Exoprimal. I don't know. That could have been it. So
which game did they took?
And so, nobody. And it looked like this, like, super over-designed Anthem-like game. One game that we watched, and it looked like absolute pixel soup, and they were on, like, some ship, and it looked like this, like, super over-designed Anthem-like game. It looked like fucking garbage. And you know they invested, even remembers the name of it.
Ooh.
So yeah, I think these developers are just investing way too much money in the
I
wrong
think
places.
I know what he's talking about.
Oh, buddy, I hope you don't want to become a triple.
He says, I'm super worried about gaming nowadays becoming like movies where everyone's putting all their eggs in 2 baskets.
Anthem.
Oh, really?
No.
It's becoming... How many fucking Spider-Man movies have we had? A
I
lot.
don't remember
How many
the
Spider-Man
game, but I
games have we
played it.
had? Also a lot.
It's okay, really. It was a failure.
It's more like movies are becoming like games.
Play game director, because in 2013, 10 years ago, Activision Blizzard put out roughly 30 video games. And if you even just look at their big titles that year, there was 10 or 15 big swings.
Kind of tired of
Big
listening to this man.
AAA games from Activision.
I mean, he's
Now,
entitled to his opinion, but
2023,
I think, in my
Activision
opinion,
has
that his
put
opinion
out
is wrong,
Diablo 4,
Welcome to
which
the
has
world.
been in development for 6 or 7 years. And by all reports, they're going to put out a Call of Duty. So if you want it to be...
I don't know. I mean, is Activision going to make a new Call of Duty? I mean, fuck, who knows?
Yeah, obviously they will.
a director on a big AAA game, your chances went from 15 to 2. Shit's weird right now.
Yeah, it is. It's
I
definitely
have
weird.
to agree with you.
And also, I think it's because they don't have the creativity
with
to
him, at
make a
least.
game that actually defines the genre. And I think that's
Not
one of the
last
reasons
thing.
why we haven't seen a
It
lot
is
from the
weird.
Riot game. Because I don't think that the Riot developers, I think Riot knows that a massive amount of their reputation is tied. It's tied to the MMO, and they have to find a way to define the genre. And I don't think that they've been able to do that yet, or that they know how to do that yet, because right now
Very difficult.
almost all MMOs are just trying to be a better version of WoW. That's it. Like,
And WoW is trying to be a better version of EverQuest, and EverQuest is trying to be a better version of Ultima Online. I'm sorry, I just gotta remind people.
WoW is seen as the foundation or the template, and then they build off of that. And I think that's not good.
Now, I would say WoW was definitely the template for the
especially in
cheesy,
three pieces of
you
good
know,
news for you and your son. The first one is
simplified version of EverQuest. Yes,
especially
100%.
in industries that aren't video games.
Which
Games
in the end,
programmers
hey,
and
oversimplification
games
wins.
people.
Is that
Basically.
what drives the market? So be it. But
I'm
just
pretty sure a
saying,
programmer
saying.
in like
Well,
I'm
Hats
pretty
is
sure
his
programmer in
daddy
finance or
EverQuest.
banking,
Okay.
kind of the same thing, really. But you know, it's gonna make more money than gaming. But yeah, sure.
People in general are often paid less than their counterparts in other industries.
Okay,
so
my
whether it's
G, is
finance
the rest of the video
or
talking with this guy?
agritech or whatever the case may
Okay, moving on.
If a game
Well,
is
let's
short,
see.
people
Let's
want
just
more
go
of the
back to
game.
the
If a game
area.
is bad, people don't want the game.
Developers that hopped
Exactly.
in on this
Thank
tweet
you.
also shared similar sentiments. However, they were also smaller third-party companies or
Sure.
indie developers, and we don't have those same kind of expectations for them that we would anybody else. We wouldn't look at them and say, well, you need to make games that look and play just like Baldur's Gate 3. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No,
We don't look
of
at a
course
game
not.
like Vampire Survivors and expect those guys to turn around and come out with the next Halo or something like that.
No, but within each genre, including indie games, there are certain games that set the bar, quote unquote, right? Like for example, we take Minecraft, right? We take Terraria, we take what else? What else? We take Stardew Valley. Notice that even though there are similarities within them, they're still their unique game and mechanics, and because of their success there are many clones of it or attempts at making a better one, which is fine, but it's at the top, this S tier basically of that genre, so to speak. So each game has its pedestal to reach, if that makes sense, or each game genre that, at least, I mean, that should be the goal. I mean, to make the next new banger, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If anything, we actually expect from those smaller companies to produce
More
less
small games.
polished games to us that
Yeah, of course.
just have more in-depth gameplay or explore a very specific
And
part of
in the
gameplay
end,
in a much
a game
larger
does
scope
not have
than
to
most
be
games normally
complicated to be
and
successful.
have really
Okay,
simplified
they're
game
different
loops that
monsters.
keep us
By the way,
just because
somebody
they're
said,
both
isn't
games,
it
it's like
disingenuous
saying,
for her to say the
you
consumer
know,
knows how many
apples
people
are
are in the
different
dev team? Yes,
from I
the
don't know,
consumer
any
does
other
not
fruit
give a
from pears.
fuck how many people are in
They're
the
still
dev team.
fruits.
It doesn't matter. Oh, it took $200 million to create? Well, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to spend $70 for it. Well, I don't care. Well, I want to play the game. Well, it takes time. I don't care. It's not the consumer's job to care.
keep us addicted, like a Vampire Survivors or something
It's,
like that.
it's the consumer's job to
Now,
wait.
what's really
and once it's
interesting
released,
about this
they
thread
buy.
is
They
that
really don't
it
care
doesn't
about your
just end
developing
with the
process.
third
That's
party
just
and
sadly
the
how it is.
indie developers. No,
Now
no,
people like me
the
do
AAA
care.
developers felt
Obviously,
like
I'm
they
just
should
making
also
blanket
chime in as
statements.
well. And
Bite me.
Oh,
There's
boy.
people that
Here we go.
care.
oh boy,
But
Here it
the
comes.
grand majority.
Insomniac Games design manager
we
Ryan
know.
McCabe urged others not to use a singular game to set expectations for everyone that's developing RPGs because it isn't useful, and
Nope,
instead
I want every game to be like Elden Ring. That's right. I said it.
Man, I really
Every
need to play
game,
Elden
that
Ring. I know
is
it's like
the-
Dark Souls. I play
that
Dark
is the
Souls. I
tip
love
of the
it, but I
mountain.
need to play it at some point.
Now, if you don't get to the tip, I understand it. But you better be on the fucking mountain.
See what I mean? Exactly.
Don't
There's
be
like
on
a
some
pedestal.
hill over somewhere else talking about battle passes and gotcha bullshit.
Yeah, agreed.
foolhardy.
If you're gonna give me a Star
Obsidian
Wars
Entertainment
game,
design director Josh Sawyer
don't make me
noted
wait
that
6
having
years
the
to be able to
foundation
unlock Darth
set
Vader. Okay.
and the funding
I just
to
got
build
reminded of
things
that
on your
today,
own
by the way.
terms is
Battlefront 2,
invaluable.
remember that?
This is not downplaying the talented
It's again, please understand that we have quarterly profits to make. No, The consumer is not responsible for you being able to make money.
I love
so
that
they
this
have to
needs to be
buy your
said out
shitty
loud.
game.
It sounds
No,
obvious, but
that's not how it works.
it sounds common sense.
What the
But
fuck
like
are we
Dr.
talking
Phil
about
loves
here?
saying,
This is
common sense is
insane.
not that common.
Work on Baldur's Gate 3, but acknowledging the case is atypical for the games industry. Now, I find these tweets specifically a little bit more interesting. I don't know if this is industry transparency. Are they telling us that, some of these larger studios like Insomniac or Obsidian Games don't actually have any autonomy over the things that they're creating? Or
I bet they don't. I bet they probably don't. And I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons why we see lower levels of. I think a lot of video games now are not as creative as they used to be in a lot of ways. I think the storylines are very much copy-paste. Whenever I see many of these games, I can kind of predict what's going to happen, especially with like these bigger games. You look at the menu, you look at the battle pass, you look at the way the game is set up. I think it's kind of the same fucking thing. Like, how many of you guys have never played a game, but you see the game UI and you watch the game for like 30 seconds and you know everything that there is to know about it?
Yeah, because they
Like,
keep following
especially
the
this is
same
true with
fucking
shooters.
gacha formula.
It is so fucking true with shooters. And this is what happens. And I think that it's a huge problem. And the reason why it's a huge fucking problem is because the developers that are making these games, that are actually, coding move leg, left leg, right leg, left leg, right leg. These guys went to school to make Elden Ring. They didn't go to school to make fucking cookie cutter
Thank you. Yes.
like, let me think. Cookie cutter looter shooter game with a battle pass that's on a bi-monthly basis. These are people that were inspired by Pikmin. They were inspired by Super Mario.
Exactly.
Inspired,
They were
by
inspired
Dark
just
Souls.
like me
inspired
by the games they
World
play
of
when
Warcraft,
they're growing up.
something like.
Only to be pigeonholed to doing this horrible gacha games because it's what's profitable. Like, the soul is gone for most games nowadays. That's why I have to agree with the man earlier. It is fucking weird.
That and that creativity is just being fucking like put in a garbage disposal.
Yeah.
It's just getting destroyed. And what comes out of it is this shit.
This
That's what I think happens.
utter
I think it's
garbage.
very problematic.
How many games have we
And
played
I think it's more corrosive.
that are similar? How many clones of a clone of a clone have you guys played? Like, I'm tired of them. That's why I don't play MMOs anymore. They just keep cloning them. Just a new clone with a different face. It's really all it is.
Than people might imagine. Because whenever you are disconnected from being like, because they're in a creative role, and one of the worst things that you can do to a person in a creative role is prevent them from being creative.
are they telling us that they don't get the amount of funding that they need for some of the projects that they're making? Or are they saying that they do? It's
sounds like a
interesting to
personal
say
problem.
that they're jumping in on this conversation and saying that they also don't want to be held to the standard that Baldur's Gate 3 is putting out when they themselves
get out
come
the
from companies that
industry.
have
Why are
more
you
than enough
here?
resources to be able to put out the exact same quality of games as Larian Studios does. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it does
Now,
not.
things get really interesting when Diablo 4 senior designer Chris Balzer also drops in.
Okay.
He says, "You're absolutely right. Even if you look at one of Vink's touchstones, Ultima 7, that's a game that had 12 years of prior games feeding into it. If we were to look at this as a new benchmark, we would need to then focus on creating conditions just like with Tears of the Kingdom." Furthermore, he states, "But people often only look at the fruits of labor and not the labor itself."
It's because nobody cares about the labor.
Sadly,
Nobody
yeah.
gives a shit.
I do care, but most
That's why
people don't.
everybody goes and buys Adidas shoes, even though they were made in sweatshops.
How many people know
That's
what
why
Larian Studio is?
That's why AI art is so popular. Nobody actually cares about how hard you worked on something. Please stop caring about how hard you work. That is not a badge of honor. That is just, and oftentimes it should be the opposite. You work too fucking hard to achieve too little. Work smarter, not harder. What the fuck
Yeah.
are you talking about? Like, we need to care about how much effort you put into it. Of course it matters to an extent, and people can appreciate the effort that is involved. But don't expect people to one-to-one value to effort. Because you can put a lot of effort into something and it can be worth fucking nothing. That's just how it is.
So hear me out again. Hear me out, because I know I'm taking crazy pills at this point. Okay. Hear me out. If you dedicate the time, effort, and money to something that, wait for it, people actually want, it might actually sell. All right. Thank you.
Like, and again, like, there are many games that, like, with a benchmark for a game, Diablo 4 is a great example. Diablo 4 has 20 years of prior games feeding into it. And on release, it's not as comprehensive as Path of Exile.
Thank you. There it is.
And I don't think it's supposed to be in some ways, but I know that it's trying to be in some ways, and it's not yet. So that's just how it is. And it doesn't matter about how many people are on the team. I don't care. You release a game, people are going to be like,
The question is, what did you put all those resources into? What did you decide to focus more? Because again, hear me out. If you would have put more effort into building the game and maybe adding the cosmetic shit later on down the road, I'm just saying, it was still gonna make millions of dollars just by selling the game, but we want more. We want more and more and more. And the games that we put out they seem incomplete. They seem like you chase a mountain, like trying to climb to the top, and once you do, it's like, it's kind of fizzled out,
hey, this either works or it
coming into
Alright,
the
let's
picture.
just
We're
get this
talking
over
about a
with.
company that has far more resources than Larian Studio does, far more people working for them,
Yeah.
far more just
But how
money,
did they get to the point?
experience,
How did they get to
Everything?
that point?
far more everything. If we're going to be running by at least his idea of how things should work, well, then that should be the same case for Diablo 4. And
There you
Diablo
go.
4 should show this massive evolution of the series from years of experience and
But
all of the other.
Yeah, I think Diablo 4 is a great game, but it's not. It doesn't evolve the genre.
No,
It's not Elden Ring. It's a great game,
it's a good game, and that's it. It's just a good
but
game.
it's not there.
Games that's been feeding into it,
Oh, I
whether
like it.
that's
I like Diablo.
Warcraft,
I love
StarCraft,
Diablo, but it is-
Overwatch, whatever. It doesn't
I know
matter.
people might not
But
like that I say that, but
personally,
I do like it.
even though I like Diablo 4, it
Yeah.
is definitely not that game. It's not that game that has
It's not that game.
20 years of other games that are feeding into it.
Well, it
it's
kinda
not the
does,
game that
actually.
reflects all of this experience learned from prior Diablo
I
titles.
love like they're literally saying the same thing.
Now, like I said before, it is completely fine for some of these other companies to hop in and have their opinion and say, don't hold us to this standard. It's a completely other thing for these AAA companies to come in and try to use this as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
No, because Larian did set the bar.
Yeah.
They set the bar for you.
Mm-hmm.
AAA games should absolutely be aiming to hit the same mark that Larian Studios does.
Exactly.
There's absolutely no excuse for it, especially with the size of
Yep.
some of these companies and how much money they have available to them, how many
Thank
people
you.
they have that are
I
working
agree.
for them, how long-standing
I mean-
some of their franchises are. There are no excuses whatsoever for them not to be able.
I mean, we can pretty much summarize it here. We know what's going on. This really comes down to the whole system seems to be poisoned by some sort of weird shit where now we make games for the sake of making money, and then we just toss them and make a new one. And in order to be able to toss them, you got to make them as simple and streamlined as possible. So guess what? We get clone after clone after clone after clone after clone. And it gets boring. It gets depressing, actually. And that's what happened to a lot of us old OG gamers. I mean, I'm 35 plus here playing games since like 9 years old. Actually, even sooner than that. But PC games since 9. And I can tell you that I can count the times where I've genuinely felt this overwhelming desire to play a game. And like anything, it fades over time. But the idea is that it stays there for a long enough time for you to invest the time and feel satisfied that the time invested yielded what you wanted. But now we don't even get the chance to do that. It's like we don't even get the chance to like form those bonds with games because they're not meant to be that anymore. They're just there for the give me your money, and once everyone kind of moves on, then fuck it. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. My opinion on this is that, and I think Golarian Studios, please keep setting the bar. I wish I could work for that company. That'd be really cool. I don't know. Maybe I should look into it. I think they're in Canada. It'd be really cool. I'm just saying. All right, guys. Name is FrankScape. Thank you. Appreciate you. I'll be seeing you on the next one. Later.